watching F5. We are here at App World 2025 in Singapore. I'm joined by my old friend John at this point. John, can I get you to introduce yourself?
Oh, great to see you again, Boo. I do a lot of things, but I'm the founder of Blue Connector, a consulting and training firm based here in Singapore, and I'm also the organizer of the API Days Singapore conference, which has been running every year since 2019. So we just had our 2025 conference last month, and we had great support from F5 and a great lineup of speakers. A lot of interesting topics, as there were have been here at App World.
Awesome. And it's been growing ever since. You guys have had to expand your location.
Yes, we outgrew our venue last year. We really liked that venue, but we realised it was a little bit cramped, so we moved to Marina Bay Sands this year. And it was still very packed, but at least we had a little bit more room. We had some more space to run more tracks. Chuck Heron from F5 came to speak. It was really great event over 2 days.
I love when Chuck talks about APIs. He's very passionate about it.
Yeah, and clearly the credibility that he has, having worked in that CISO role, shows through in everything he talks about and shares with people about how to organize for securely managing your environment.
So it's not just a technology solve. There's some aspects of program management around APIs.
Well, so in API Days, I see the APIs are the glue that connect the technology stack together. So everything that the APIs touch the APIs or the API touches is what we try to give in a holistic view of how you manage the technology stack. So we have discussions about the business models related to APIs, as well as the so things like open banking and embedded finance, and software as a service, how you consume, how you make services consumable through APIs. But we also have the related technologies of data and AI and the architecture of the technology stack, platform engineering, and DevOps are also key topics that we discuss in the conference.
Wow, yeah, covers everything. I can see why it's grown. Those are all topics, and I think often people think that that's one, you say one technology and that's one person's domain, but that's one person might cover several domains in there. Something like that is very relevant to them.
Certainly, and this is the thing about APIs. They're so pervasive that there are some people, some professionals whose sole job is to publish APIs, but it's pretty much everyone's job to consume APIs, because we have such distributed technology environments that we may be building one thing, one application, but we're consuming things from other applications or from other services. And so the same people who are involved with APIs are also involved with these other systems. And that's why they really need to understand enough about how the pieces fit together and what each piece is for. That makes life interesting, but it also creates that challenge of being able to deal across the organization in the different parts of the technology organization, but also in the business units that are relying on these systems to deliver for their customers.
This is going to be not a great example, but I think of DNS in that you had your DNS administrator who is administering maybe internal DNS and made things like Active Directory work, and then that person is automatically elected to be the external DNS management person, and then when it comes to things like mail flow, things like Active Directory that use a little bit of different records as well, all of a sudden this DNS person becomes a person that touches a whole lot of different things. I know APIs goes even well beyond that as well, but I can think of that as like, oh, I thought I was doing one thing. I thought I was managing Active Directory, and all of a sudden I have to manage all these other parts.
Well, and the way APIs started, an API is a term that's almost as old as computing itself, but in recent memory, API started as an internal thing. But then when people realized that they could expose services to other organizations, then it became more of a business model. And one of the things that really came out of the API Days Singapore conference was Mehdi, the founder of API Days, gave an updated view of what has variously become known as the Amazon mandate or the Jeff Bezos mandate, where in 2003 he wrote a letter to all staff saying every team needs to expose their services through interfaces. He didn't actually use the term API, but it came to mean APIs, and that enabled Amazon to not only clean up their own environment, but then make that infrastructure available to other organizations. It became the birth of Amazon Web Services. Now we're in this era of AI making possible all sorts of new ways of creating content, responding to customers, interfacing with different knowledge bases in order to streamline how we operate. But Mehdi made the point, well, perhaps now organizations need to tell every team to think about AI first. How are you going to make your service consumable by an AI agent? And what are the principles under which you would do that?
Interesting.
And I think that's what really presents us with a challenge and also some excitement to think that APIs aren't really going away. They may be pushed, they occupy a certain layer in the stack, and there may be some things that are put in front of that, but we should be thinking about how, as developers, as technology team leaders, as architects, as business unit leaders, we make our services more consumable, not just to another application, but to an agent now. And what are the benefits of being able to do that? Same benefits as before in terms of reusability and standardization and better utilization of your assets. But in addition to that, being able to create new services or new combinations of services in a streamlined way, new capabilities that really were either didn't exist or were too hard for most organizations to implement before.
I think as well, perhaps when you do that, if you don't do that, it's easy to get passed by, because right now people are tinkering a lot, and so you might look at some options for services, and let's say you're building an agentic flow, and then you try to connect to something and it doesn't work the first time. Within 5 seconds, I just move on to the next one. I'm like, if I can't read your documentation and figure out how this is going to work fairly quickly or have some sort of quick start guide, I'm going to move to the next one, and they'll have a quick start guide, and I know exactly how to make it work, or maybe there was already a plugin ready to go. I'll just use that now.
And you look at some of the companies that really made their name, the core of their business around exposing a service through an API, like Twilio and Stripe, is that they did that. They made it as easy as possible to consume that service. They spent a lot of time in the design to make it suitable for people who had, or companies who had no understanding of IT. So there's a no-code version of interfacing with Stripe through their checkout page.
Yeah.
There's one that offers an SDK for different languages, and then you can consume the API directly if you want absolute control. I think when you look at the companies that are going to be successful at making their service or product embedded in other solutions or consumed by other people, they're going to make it as easy as possible for people to consume that. And the ones that don't, if it's clunky, if it's too hard to get the authentication or authorization right, or the provisioning right, or just to understand that flow, then they're going to be ignored, and people are going to gravitate towards the services that are the most easy to access.
Let's go one level deeper on that. Whose job is it to look at that user experience for an API? Should the developer have that already in mind? Is it a product owner or product manager who is watching all the time? What does onboarding look like for this? Ultimately, somebody's got to be accountable. If it's defined as a priority, somebody's got to be accountable for this, and what do you kind of see as that person?
I wonder about the different roles that already exist in organizations, because organizations configure themselves around certain things. So some of the in some organizations, the responsibility is for user experience or developer experience is a UX designer. In other organizations, it's a product owner, and in other organizations, it's the the business unit or the chief revenue officer. I think that rather than tell organizations they have to change the structure and create a chief agent experience officer, that's probably not the best thing to do. But I see already organizations that have a chief digital officer now all of a sudden add responsibility for AI to that chief digital officer. And so I guess that comes to what professionals should be thinking about their own career. If I'm a product manager right now, maybe I should have already been thinking about how I become an API product manager. But in future, maybe I need to understand how to be a good AI product manager.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how organizations are going to evolve exactly, because that's pretty hard to predict. But as professionals, we should always be thinking about who's my customer. And if I'm a developer, my customer might be another developer. It might be the product manager or product owner, and put yourself in their shoes and what they need. And if you're a product owner, the AI agents that are consuming your product, maybe you need to put yourself in the shoes of the AI agent.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, we are pretty good for time here, John, so this was a great discussion with you. I always love having these chats with you, and you bring a lot of insight into this, like really knowing, and through your consulting, I guess, and your community, everything that you're able to share with us is awesome insight, so really appreciate it.
Great talking with you again.
Awesome. Make sure everybody follows, likes, subscribe. If you're in the Singapore area, you should already know about API Days, but if you don't, I'll tag John and API Days and make sure you come out to that. And there's some other chapters around the world as well. It's a pretty big organization at this point with a few different events going on. So make sure you check those out. Otherwise, thank you very much, and we will see you on the next one. Bye, folks.